26th. Sorry. Ready? Let's go again. This episode is brought to you by O'Connor Plumbing, a family contracting business for all your plumbing needs 24/7, 365, and whose clients have included Washington Redskins and Washington Capitals. They're dedicated to exceeding customers' expectations for the last 70 years. O'Connor Plumbing is built on a reputation of integrity and its leading role in the community. Something I'm not sure we can say about the world of college basketball.
Everything that I believe in and try to live for, morally, if true, this is so woefully wrong and staggeringly sad. This goes against everything that I believe in and try to live for, morally, ethically, and legally. Now, I was there in Detroit almost 14 years ago at the NBA, the Malice in the Palace. It was the lowest point of my life. This right now is right there at the bottom. This is a complete failure of the human spirit and soul. Basketball is a celebration of life for me. I wish I were out riding my bike up a mountain instead of being here, part of this. Well, here's the starting five.
Welcome, basketball fans in D.C. and around the country. I'm former American University head coach Chris Nockey, and I'm joined in studio by three other basketball coaches here in the D.C. area. My running mate at AU and himself a former coach at the University of Pennsylvania. And at AU, he's been around the block. AU's all-time assist leader, NBA draft pick back in whatever year that was.
83.
Gordon Austin, 1983. Gordon Austin joins us, the one-time head coach and now executive vice president of the Washington Wizards. Eddie Tapscott joins us by phone from the Paris of the Midwest that is Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Tap, welcome aboard. And
thanks, Chris. I get all the good trip, don't I?
Yeah, you sure do, man. We're all jealous. And last but not least, our NCAA championship coach and inductee into the Basketball Hall of Fame in 2014, Maryland's Gary Williams, who coincidentally also rode his bike up the mountain to get here, just much like our friend Bill Walton did. Remarkable speech by Big Bill.
I watch a lot of the games he does, and I wish he was riding his bike in most of those games.
If you're listening or watching us on demand for the first time, we are what we say we are. We're four coaches with about 75 years of combined bench experience, just having dinner and a couple of beers together, and here at Chatter each week and breaking down the latest NBA and college basketball storylines. And, well, you don't have to go very far to figure out where we start. NCAA issues reared their ugly heads again. You know, Coach, there was a time when four assistant coaches, this is back in the late fall, did the perp walk, basically. We were wondering when the next shoe was going to drop, either via the NCAA or far more likely the FBI. And we found out in spades over the course of the last 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, when you look back, you know they didn't have that. The FBI didn't have that press conference to announce four assistant coaches were in trouble. You know, they were going after some big boys, and you know, unfortunately, it's been going on for a long time. This isn't people. I get a kick out of people that say, "Wow, like that it just happened." You know, no, it's been going on. You know, as long as I was in coaching, and I think it really started when the money came into the game. Really, when Magic and Bird played against each other in the NCAA championship in Salt Lake in '79, people realized you could really sell college basketball. ESPN came in at the same time and put everything, all the games on, and made the Big East Conference. All those things took place right around the same time, and there's money to be made now. And anytime there's money to be made, you know how that goes.
Well, I get that this is the money change. Money changes everything. There's no question about it. There's a relatively new phenomenon. You've been out of coaching now for 7 years, right? Seven seasons. It wasn't that long ago that the process generally, when a kid was going through a process with an agent, I know that there were a lot of times you were bypassed, but there were also just as many times where you would help your players with prospective agents come in there. Now that ship has sailed. I mean, it seems to me the agents go right to parents, and, right to AAU coaches.
And they do it long before they get to college.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times it's done their side. If a guy looks like he's going to be a good player, you know, to an agent that's very successful, to drop a couple thousand on a kid when he's a sophomore in high school, that doesn't mean anything. Doesn't affect the agent's business. It just puts him in a situation to get that kid if he is as good as he thinks he's going to be. And, you know, the people that are around these players sometimes, with a breakdown a little bit in the family structure and things like that, they're not the type of people that are going to say no to something like that. And that's what you need. Somebody's got to start saying no. Nobody says no anymore. It's okay, yeah. Well, that's not really cheating, and you hear that all the time. Yeah. It is cheating. The NCAA has rules. The FBI has their laws, and the NCAA has rules. And you can break both things. They're two different things.
And this would have been going on for a long time if the FBI didn't get involved. I mean, when would we look?
Forever.
Yeah.
But see, the reason is we have this conversation every couple of weeks. There's so little downside to cheating.
Yeah.
When was the last time the NCAA came down hard on somebody?
I know.
Was sitting right here.
We went no NCAA and no television for 2 years. Try that sometime and see how your recruiting goes.
And then you get
Not
a
so
contract like Sean Miller has at Arizona, where there's almost
he gets more. He gets more.
There's incentive to go rogue.
To go
what that
rogue.
means.
Plus, here's the other thing: the only player, unless they can prove something legally. The only people in trouble are the people that took the money because of tax evasion.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody's reported that money in taxes.
You can bet they have not.
And where did the money come from?
Well, it comes from a lot of different things. Agents, for sure. Maybe shoe company, and maybe boosters of programs.
Yeah,
there's been a history of boosters that have given money in programs.
There's one of the four of us here that has a law degree. Okay,
That's
so
right.
I have a question from that perspective, Tap.
Sure.
So now, it seems to me that dealing with this issue has to fall. The NCAA doesn't have the appetite, the interest, or apparently the juice to really penalize anybody. They haven't shown it in years where they come down on anybody. It also seems to me on the high end that the FBI has bigger fish to fry. So, or I thought they had bigger fish to fry. Maybe not. So who should be responsible for ferreting out who did what the penalties are, because the FBI can determine who did what, but they're not going to give programmatic penalties to Arizona or anybody else.
No, they'll go after individuals.
Yeah.
Their focus will be on individuals. They won't be on programs. Look, the difference here is, like I said, there's never been, since we've all been in the game, and it's been a while, right? Have we ever heard these two words put together? Head coach, wiretap.
Oh.
Right? Those two words have never been together before. Now, why are those two words together? Well, because over the whole course of time, the NCAA has done very, very little in terms of actually cleaning up the game. They wanted the game clean enough to sell. They didn't necessarily want the game to be clean. And as a result, the FBI happened upon a circumstance through another form of discovery of facts that what we have here is classic racketeering. You have unaccounted for money being paid to people that is not being declared as revenue. And although it doesn't look like a hell of a lot to people, it's extremely widespread. So now the FBI decides, well, you know something? These guys haven't done a damn thing in how many decades? We'll jump into this, see what it looks like. And I'm sure once they got in, they realized, oh, my goodness, there's an entire subculture of this. Now, what does the NCAA do in its response to clean this up? There will be coaches probably fired. The question is, what do we do with major programs who have turned a blind eye over the years? And that's why we've got a very different ball game than we've ever had before. Head coach, wiretap.
Yeah, it's a
Two words put together.
hell of a connection. And, I think that, Coach, anybody who's been involved in college basketball knows in sort of a wink, nod sort of level who's cheating and who isn't.
Oh, yeah, that's the thing that used to drive me nuts. I mean, as a coach, Chris, you know that, and Gordon, all you want is a level playing field. You want to go out and play against guys that have recruited like you have or whatever. And if they get the best players, then they beat you, because they were better recruiters than you were. That's fine. But don't tell me a guy's a great recruiter because I know he's paying money. That used to drive me nuts. Well, how come you didn't get this kid? Well, he gave him $50,000. That's why I didn't get the kid. And you can't say that, You
Well,
can't
it's funny you say that. Okay,
I know. Well, it's a coach's thing. They do it. The coach. When does a coach squeal on another coach?
There was an incident earlier this year in early January where Colorado beats Arizona at Colorado. And afterwards, Tad Boyle, the Colorado coach, was asked, does this mean any more to you because you beat Arizona? And his response was, absolutely it does.
Oh, yeah.
I work my ass off to do things the right way.
Yeah.
And for that, for him saying that, the the commissioner of his league asked him to apologize publicly to Sean Miller in Arizona. He said no. So now I'm wondering how he's feeling this week, or this weekend.
He's got to be feeling pretty good
after the events.
Damn good.
But back to my point about who's doing what. I think to a large degree, Arizona's been one of those programs that everybody's always had questions about.
And this is what I'm hearing, that the big boys, obviously the Arizonas of the world, that level, the majors, the power conferences. They get the guys that if you're going to do something, that's basically who you do it with. You get the one and done guys. They're and see, the whole culture of the one and done is wrong, because if I'm one and done, then I don't think there's anything wrong with taking money the year I'm in college, because the NBA and the NCAA is keeping me out of the NBA when I'm 18 years old. I should be allowed to go and play.
Yeah.
Because I can do anything else when I'm 18.
Sure.
But yet I can't. Well, how can baseball? How can baseball be able to sign right out of high school? How can hockey be able to sign right out of high school? And Stan Van Gundy had a good thing today in the paper saying there's a racial component to this, because they're all white guys, the guys in baseball and hockey that
We
sign.
agree with you on that.
Yeah.
I'm very serious. I think that's a very good point that I didn't really think enough about, but that's a very valid point. That, and I know, the NCAA and being on a couple committees when I was coaching and things like that, there's a lot of people out there that don't like the idea that, say, 78% of the starters on major college basketball teams are black, or almost the same percentage in football. And so instead of being men about it and say it, they just do all these little things to try to, gloss over the fact and try to say, well, we don't really like it, but we need those guys playing, though, when it comes to the NCAA tournament.
But isn't this part and parcel of that sort of thing? Because it's not lost on me that the kids whose names came up in the kids are all black.
Yeah.
And they're being paid by agents who probably are largely white.
Yeah.
And the agents don't give a shit if these guys get in trouble. They want to represent them when they go to the.
And for a player, what's the downside of doing that? Of taking money?
Yeah.
Well, you're going to go to the pros next
never
year.
thought you'd end up on a wiretap, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, not the player.
Yeah.
But I mean, but coaches, if they're willing to play that game, then you have to suffer the consequences. What do you always say, Ed, about that when like with the assistant coach, if you can't do the time,
you do a friend.
do a friend. That's right.
That's perfect.
Yeah,
Do
absolutely.
a friend.
Yeah.
And it's true. Hey, look, there's consequences on the guys. For one and done guy, if you get caught taking money, you're out anyway next year.
Right.
There are obviously NCAA consequences. And what are the consequences with regard to this investigation? Okay, you took some money, you didn't declare it on your taxes. So you pay a fine, you pay some interest.
Mm-hmm.
There really is. The system itself, the one and done system, helped create this environment.
Yeah.
Right? Because there isn't the normal disincentive to take money, because there are no consequences to your eligibility the second year or the third year or the fourth year. You're leaving. So you might as well get paid the interim year that you're spending in college, which is all it is. You might as well get paid a little something before the big payday happens. So the system itself sort of encourages this form of cheating.
Ed, what do you think about the argument, like, for a kid and his family that's in that situation, that's been offered money from an agent in terms of taking it? I'm sure the agent, the first thing he says, all these coaches are making a ton of money. The university's making a ton of money. The benefits to not just the athletic department, but to the whole university in terms of giving is big when you guys are successful. And they're going to use you to be successful, and yet you're not getting any money to the player. You're not getting a dime. And that's a pretty persuasive argument to me if I'm a
No
kid.
doubt.
And we'll call it a loan.
No doubt. Yeah.
No.
Well, see, here's the deal with the agents, though.
Yeah.
I mean, eloquent argument. You know why they give them the money? Because they want to represent them.
Sure.
Their argument isn't that eloquent. Their argument is, look here, I pay you now, you play, I got you when the NBA contract comes. Got it?
So how? Wait. I don't understand. So how is it then that this agency didn't get any of these kids? Is that just
They got outbid.
you throw a shitload of
Correct.
money at trying to get these kids signed, and then you don't get any of them? Is that the model?
That's where the failure. But you see, Chris, that's where the connection with the basketball programs come in.
Yep.
The deal now is you cut a deal with the program that these guys are going to, and their job is to help protect the kids for you as the agent.
No, that's right. In other words, if you want this kid, then part of the deal is he
Right.
comes back to me. And
That's right.
Because that agent, I think that agent hopes when he gives him this money, he hopes that gives him control of the kid, where he can direct him to a school. And then you got
Right.
the shoe companies on the other side of that. With basically, shoe companies run the major AAU programs. They
Right.
sponsor the major AAU programs. So naturally, use any of the shoe companies you want. But if I'm spending all that money on an AAU program, I want a kid, if that, say it's Nike, if that program, that AAU program is wearing Nike, I want that kid to go to a Nike school, and
Exactly.
that there it is again. It's another avenue.
Which means now you get him for a Nike sponsorship contract when he's an NBA player and
Sure.
a star and an all-star.
Yeah, and he'll go back
So,
with Nike.
I mean,
right.
this is the lineup. Once a kid identifies himself as being a gifted player, what we've now done is we've simply lined up all the payment systems before they go into college, and the university's job is to simply help protect the investment of those people who help deliver those kids to the program. And so, you remember the old rule that Tarkanian used to recruit junior college players was that their cars were already paid for?
Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that.
Okay, this is the same thing. Now guys are saying, great, here's what I got. I got an agent who's willing to fund the kid so I don't have to worry about booster dollars. I got a speaker company that's going to help deliver the kid to me so that they can have the kid when he's an NBA All-Star. And basically my job is to protect the kid for these two parties. Now, the deal was some of the assistant coaches and some of the coaches said, by the way, since you guys are handing out money, what's my fee for the protection services?
Right.
Hey, how
That's
about
when it all comes together.
Gary? How about
That's what the FBI has now discovered.
Yeah.
Sure.
how about a while ago prep schools, right? I mean, Gary,
Yeah.
right? You got Vasquez, right? And wasn't Durant going to the same?
Durant was there. Yeah,
And-
at the
and
same
Montrose-
time. Montrose Christian.
Yeah.
Everybody had to be worried about, right, protecting their kids that were there.
Yeah, I mean, with Durant there, you basically weren't allowed to talk to Durant. You couldn't talk to him. We started recruiting Gravis Vasquez early on, like his sophomore
You couldn't
year.
talk to him because Texas put him there?
Yeah. In other words, that
Right.
that happens all the time. Schools put guys in, and it's usually to get grades. In other words, Durant's hit a couple high schools, and
Yeah.
he probably wasn't qualified yet, to go. So he went to Montrose Christian. They did a good job of making sure he got the grades. But there's prep schools all through New England that do that. There's Virginia, and things like that. There's a lot of prep schools around
I'm
that
sure
do
stuff-
that, and that's just
think-
part of the deal, And like and another thing, how does a high school junior all of a sudden become a high school senior in 2 weeks?
Correct.
How do you reclassify? I've never understood that one. In other words, you're a junior in high school, but then you say, I think I want to go now.
You know what? Yeah, I've got opportunities right now.
Yeah, so 2 weeks later, they're seniors and they're graduating. So I don't know.
How did-
those
how
AP
did-
time warp.
count for two. That's all those AP courses that count for two. That's what-
Yeah. It's
There's so much-
advanced calculus, I think it was, I took.
There's
Yeah.
so much to bite off here, but I would like to nominate Sean Miller's attorney for being Lawyer of the Year for two
Correct.
reasons. First of all, the buyout he has is ridiculous. Okay. Secondly, when all this hit the fan, he's adamant about the fact that I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Well, if you believe what you read,
It's
it's his voice on the wiretap. So basically the attorney is saying he be just go out there and be big and bad and see what happens.
And
at
the
end.
third thing is the lawyer for Arizona probably can't get another job if he's the guy that did
Ever,
the contract.
Ever.
Yeah,
The only
right.
good news in this at all for Arizona is the fact that they don't have any banners they have to take down.
Well, they got one. Loot got one.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh, getting to the.
No,
Oh, that's
they
right.
won the
Miles.
championship.
Yeah, Miles Simon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we continue with the Basketball Coaches DC podcast, we want to recognize and thank our exclusive local content marketing partner for this episode, O'Connor Plumbing, the DC metro area's family contractor since 1949. O'Connor Plumbing not only provides upfront pricing, but also guarantees the products they install with up to 44 years of protection on both products and installation. If you're online right now, listening or watching our podcast, and particularly you've had some issues with some home leaks, cracked pipes after a long winter. Coach, you got any issues at home?
Yeah, I got an old house. I need you guys bad.
Check out O'Connor Plumbing. That's o'connorplumbing.net. In just a bit, we'll be spending a couple of minutes with Kevin O'Connor. He'll give us a little bit more detail about the company's highly skilled staff, and we'll talk to him about their newest ambassador, Redskins Hall of Fame running back, the one and only John Riggins. And by the way, the guys from O'Connor came with major swag. You're going to look good on that Burning Tree course with
I'll
that
tell you what.
Shamrock hat on.
Yeah.
I like it.
I like it too.
You know, I like it.
So, of course you do. The luck of the Irish. Back to finishing up the college portion of things. You know, one of the byproducts of this too that happened is, you know, in just a couple of short weeks, you're looking at the NCAA bids being announced, and what happens in between now and then could be problematic for some teams that are, you know, heretofore in the tournament. And along with that, Coach, address and explain for me how DeAndre Ayton is able to play on Saturday night, and the decision you have to make in a situation like this where there's clearly a cloud around your best player. Maybe the downside is the worst that can happen is they rule him ineligible and you're not in the tournament anyway.
How about your best player has his best performance? 28 and 18.
28, yeah, he's terrific.
Didn't
yeah.
seem to bother him. Any.
No.
But I mean, they're just gambling that the NCAA is going to take all this typical NCAA and put it into middle April.
Or of April of 2038.
No, but I mean, just act like it's the old. You know, when you get caught doing something, you just deny, and you know, I think
1 month to go.
all they got to do is last a month. The NCAA is hoping that the FBI is doing some things, continues to do things, and that way they won't have to act right away. Oh, we're waiting to see everything the FBI has. See, that's been said already by the NCAA. And so if they can get through the tournament, then all the stars play. The networks are happy because you've had the best players, the best teams in there. But, you know, it's not right. They've gotten caught with antiquated rules, and that one-and-done thing is a horrible rule. I think if anybody disagrees with that now,
No.
they're crazy. You know, they got to be crazy.
Well, I think everybody's out ahead of that now. Adam Silver is what, you know, and that's, you needed the NBA's help.
Yeah, well,
And
it's a labor. Once again, I defer to our lawyer, but it's a labor agreement between the NCAA and the Players Association and the NBA. That's the one-and-done rule.
Yeah.
Is Ed still there?
Tap, you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still here, and
Isn't that true?
We're
Ed?
gotta get rid of it.
it is true. It's look. Basically, the negotiation was between the league and the players' union to allow this one and done idea, simply because it was a huge change in culture when we started to take high school kids into the NBA. The failure rate was extremely high, simply because the resume is for the players well established, and you're really projecting from a high school kid who can play at an NBA level. So we wanted some form of, help against ourselves, essentially. So let's at least see him play 1 year in college. Well, the consequences of that 1 year has been exploited in multiple ways to create this problem. Speaking of the issue of, DeAndre Ayton playing in the game, with all due respect, fellas, what we have is a news article that's disclosed through some aggressive reporting, but we don't have an FBI indictment. We don't have an FBI press conference. What we have is some information that's sort of dribbled out, and quite honestly, I think the FBI is going to wait until the tournament is open.
Yep.
Simply because the mess that would be created if you come out before the tournament would be complete chaos. And so we'll address this issue, after the tournament. With all due respect, this has been going on for 70 years. What the hell is the hurry now?
Let me ask you, Tap.
Good point.
Ask all you guys, where did the leak come from?
It probably
From
came,
one of the assistant coaches, attorneys, maybe?
Well, I think maybe an assistant coach did that thinking he could help himself.
Yeah.
If this got out there, that there is, a Miller involved, or whatever, or it could come from the FBI,
Yeah.
just to build their case a little bit. You never know.
I know at this point in time it's all on paper, Tap, but if Jay Billis says it's so, then it must be so,
That's right,
It's
yeah.
gotta be. Let's turn our
You mean
attention.
Jay the Oracle?
No, you can't. Let's do this. Let's turn our attention to the NBA right now because we are on the heels just a few hours ago. Tappy, your boys, the Wizards, put a beat down on a nuclear hot Philadelphia 76er team. It had to be, I think, arguably the best performance of the year, if not the Cleveland game a couple games before that, but just a hellacious performance. And I know, Coach, you were sitting courtside, and I know you're not.
No, my grandkids
Your kids
were
were
sitting, I was
sitting.
up in the stands. Yeah.
So a great environment, though. It appeared to be a lot of fun.
Oh,
and,
it was the few 76ers jerseys that I saw, they got shouted down pretty quick, and they got real quiet as that game went on
Yeah.
because the Wizards just stuck it to them. And I think, but both teams came out ready to play. It wasn't like Philly didn't show up.
it
to
wasn't
start
the
game.
February February NBA
Yeah,
game.
that's what I mean. You
No,
could,
you're
could
right. I
tell.
thought it was a hard-fought game.
Yeah.
Tap. There's a lot of talk in town here. There's a lot of crazy talk about the fact that you guys are so much better without Wall. Yeah, I will say you are so much different without Wall, and I mean that in a very positive way. And so, is it conceivable that you get Wall back at like the perfect time where you get these guys who have sort of molded together? The bench has really gotten so much better than it was early in the season, and maybe Wall comes back as a does. I'm not expecting
Don't
John.
think he's coming off the bench, Chris.
No.
Don't think he's coming
No,
off the
and
bench.
I'm not.
He's going for Sixth Man of the Year award, I think.
And he's always going to be a shoot first guy, I guess. But I mean, will there be a different John Wall when he comes back? How about that question?
I think John will take a look. John is a very, very smart basketball guy, high basketball IQ. And by the way, a guy who I constantly talk to about college players. He watches the college game religiously. So he takes a look at some of the changes we had to make without him in terms of ball movement, and he'll say, okay, this is working. I have no doubt that when he comes back, he'll add his talents. He'll continue to want to encourage the thing that really has distinguished us more recently, which is this terrific ball movement. And one of the places where he will, I think, have to really sort of upgrade his performance to match the performance we've gotten from Satoransky is on the defensive end. Because one of the things about Satoransky that goes quite a bit unnoticed unless you got a coach who just loves the game, that guy gives you multiple efforts on every defensive possession. If he gets hit, he doesn't die on the screen.
He's also really long. I mean, he's much bigger. When he was playing minor minutes as a sub, he never appeared to me to have much physical presence. But now he's got the long wingspan working.
That's what surprised me last night, how big he is out there.
He works
for
at
a
it.
guard.
Obviously, he's not turning the ball over.
Yeah.
I tell you what, Tap. I'm
And he defends. He works to defend, and that's one of the pickups that we've had is that we're a better defensive team when you're getting multiple efforts at the point of attack. When that point guard doesn't get to the paint immediately and he gets resistance, your defense is a little bit more solid.
Ed, I am so impressed with Scotty Brooks right now. He gets props. I mean, he got bad mouth. I think I probably even bad mouthed him in Oklahoma City, right? Westbrook and Durant, they didn't share the ball. It was tough for him to run offense. It appeared to be the same way with Wall on the floor, and I can't get over how well coached they are at this point in time.
Well, Scotty has always focused on ball movement. He's always believed in it. What you believe in and what you can get your players to do
Correct.
often are two different things.
And now he can get him
And
to do it.
Right. Well, here's the deal. It's a process of erosion. You come in, you have an established star. He's played one way. He's used to playing that way. Immediately, he's not going to all of a sudden change what he does simply because you ask him to. But you keep preaching, you keep showing, you keep demonstrating. And in some ways, perhaps one of the bright things that has occurred with John's injury is he can see what ball movement means to this team now in a way that perhaps he wouldn't have seen if he had been on the floor the entire time without the injury.
I want to believe, Tap.
Yeah.
I want to believe.
But we know in the playoffs,
Well,
you need
here's
somebody
the
to
deal.
break you down one-on-one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got a benchmark now, right? So we've had 12 games without John, and we're 9-3. So do you not think that the media is going to benchmark him in his first 12 games back?
Here's my issue, and I totally agree.
Yeah.
And not only that, you also have reel after tape, right? I mean, they don't have reels of tape, but you got a lot of video evidence.
Chris,
How about
you're
that?
old, reels
Yeah, I'm
of
really
tape.
old. So you have
G drive after G drive.
Yeah.
So you have all this evidence that supports your stake, and then what happens is you get to the heat of a first-round playoff game in the fourth quarter, and I just think you regress to the mean if you're in a situation like that. And one of the issues that the problem I love watching him play. There's, I mean, the speed is crazy and the talent is amazing. But one of the things that drives me nuts is that he feels compelled to have to be the guy to shoot the ball at the end of every important possession. And that I think that ship has sailed. And I think these guys, the way they play right now, shows that they don't have to play that way anymore. Not that they ever did. So that's kind of my point, is that, the slippage when you get to the crunch time of a playoff game is going to be pretty telling.
Yeah, there'll be some struggle with that, but here's what I will say to you. Remember, he comes back into the locker room. He comes back in and joins his crew, his team. These guys have been having discussions all along the way. He's aware. He sees what's happened. He's even heard the things that are being said. There will be every incentive on his part, in my belief, since I believe him to be an extremely bright young man, and I deal with him all the time, and had a very high basketball IQ. I think he'll want to make the right play, particularly as we get closer to playoffs.
I hope you're right. And by the way, speaking of his crew, give us a temperature check of the relationship as much as you can between him and Gortat right now.
Let me tell you how I describe that. They're like corduroy pants. After time, when you're walking around with corduroy pants, it just starts to rub together. You know what I mean? It starts making noise. We
Where did you pull that one from?
Game 60, these guys have been yelling at each other about, you didn't make that play. You were supposed to help me on
It's
this.
not exactly a glowing recommendation of the relationship, Tap. Maybe it's just me, but
I like the Will Chamberlain dinner better.
Well, here's the deal. Here's the deal. They'll play well together. They aren't going to share toothbrushes probably, but they're fine, man. You're going to get this noise. Let me tell you something. Considering how long I've been with the Wizards, this is just normal NBA stuff.
Yeah.
I'm so happy to deal with normal NBA stuff, considering before we had abnormal NBA stuff.
well, an eternal strife is no. It's not particular.
It's not all bad. It keeps the juices flowing. Let's put it this way: as you get into this time of year before the playoffs, guys, if they're talking about it, great, because that they know that they've got a chance now. They have a lot more depth because of what's going on without Wall, and they're looking forward to really gaining momentum going to the playoffs. And that means Wall coming back. I think that's very important that he does come back. But here's the other thing: they don't have to rush to get him back now because of the way that everybody's playing.
Yeah.
They don't have to give him a lot of minutes right away. So maybe that's a positive.
Is he
thing.
practicing right now at all?
No, not yet. He's still doing the rehab, and we think probably mid-March before he'll start to get on the court. And you got to give him obviously a couple of days to work his way back into shape. But one of the telling stats, even with sort of the improvement in the ball movement or the defense, if you want to see it that way, one of the stats that we had last night that was on the television set is that we're a much faster paced team with John in the game. So in the last 12 games, we're running about 98 possessions a game. When we have John on the floor, we're at 105 possessions. Mm-hmm. So there's still a significant difference in the pace of the game with him on the floor.
But
so
are any of those minimized by the fact that your turnovers are up with him in the game? So, I mean, you have 98 possessions with him out, and 105 with him in, but he's turning the ball over at a higher rate than Satoransky is, right?
Stat.
You think so?
Yeah, but the problem is without John on the floor, the guy who's now turning the ball over with a higher rate is Bradley Beal. So there's been a compensating number of turnovers by Bradley, who's kind of got caught up in the playmaking hysteria, but he's turning the ball over. So last night, I think he had 8 assists, but he had 7 turnovers.
Yeah, he had a couple turnovers last night. He just lost focus. You could see it. He just kind of gave the ball
Hey, how
up.
about that pass into the stands over top of the 76ers bench?
Oh, I like that. Did you see the 76ers bench? They were laughing at that one.
Yeah, that's
time of possession's longer now.
That's a good stat.
That is a good stat.
I mean, it's not a 1-on-3 break or a 2-on-2 quick fast break. It's taking 18 seconds off the clock.
Yeah, a good point. Hey, Tap, by the way, you mentioned the injury. We talked about the injury to Wall. Obviously, Jimmy Butler goes down this week, torn meniscus. Guys go down. True or false? Was Westbrook, was that intentional between Zaza and Westbrook from your perspective?
Of course it was. Guys have long memories. They know who's. Let's put it this way: Even your pet dog knows the difference between a trip and a kick. All right? So an NBA player knows the difference between a trip and a kick. And so, yeah, look, guys will wait, and they will take their retribution the next time down the road.
But
those things are discussed.
So Tap,
But usually nobody says it, though, right? I mean, Westbrook always wears that stuff on his sleeve.
But wait, we're going back to the Celtics right now. So
So what time was that? A half hour of that, the Celtics? Wow.
It took him a whole half hour.
How about that?
39 minutes. We made it to the 39-minute mark with that.
Al Horford and Morris last year was intentional?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
Hey, just think how Gordon would feel about you if you worked for the Celtics. Just think about that for a second.
Go ahead, Tap. Kelly Oubre, what?
I think Kelly Oubre just kind of bumped into Kelly
Olynyk, yeah.
Kelly who? He's not a Celtic anymore.
Kelly Olynyk, remember that guy? So, I mean, look, guys, look, there's a form of frontier justice out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so be careful what you do and be even more careful what you say about it.
I got it. All right, we're going to take a couple-minute break. We usually do it about this time to let Gary get some chicken fingers and Gordon to go right back up there for his Tito's at the bar. I want to welcome to a microphone our content marketing partner tonight. O'Connor Plumbing is here, and Kevin O'Connor is with us. Kevin, first of all, thank you very much for helping us out and for your sponsorship and for the
Kevin.
swag. Great stuff,
Yeah,
man.
I like that hat.
Thank you guys for the opportunity.
It's
in time for St.
It's
Patrick's
good to
Day.
have you in
Yeah.
here. You have we talked about the locker room here a few minutes ago, and it occurs to me that you're in you run a family business, so it's a tight knit crew, much like a locker room would be. Is there any dysfunction in that family relationship, or are you guys everything good?
No, we definitely have some dysfunction.
Really?
Yeah, just like any family.
So now this business has been passed down from your grandfather to your father to you. Do you feel like people are always looking over your shoulder? Are they
No.
still around? Is your dad still around?
Yeah, Dad's still very active. Dad focuses on education, so training our existing staff and then working with the youth to bring them into the trade and show the opportunity. Granddad, George O'Connor, had O'Connor Plumbing back in the 40s. Obviously, my dad, growing up with him, learned the trade. And then my brother's a master plumber as well, Tommy O'Connor.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so you guys have been at it a while. You're in Germantown and Frederick, but I see your trucks everywhere, right?
Sure.
How many folks do you have working for you?
We have about 120
That's
families we
big.
support.
That's big.
Yeah.
You also are big in the sports community here in DC. You've I understand John Riggins is now working with you guys.
Sure.
He's not plumbing, to be clear.
John
but he's doing
will
some
put
promotion.
on he actually dressed up as the undercover plumber the other day.
Oh, he did.
Did he
For
really?
a commercial.
Yeah, so for our story, Ron Saul joined our team. Ron played with the Redskins.
Former
Right.
offensive lineman, right?
Sure,
Yep.
former guard. So he joined our team about 12 years ago, doing business development. We work in the multifamily community for apartments, doing service and renovation work. And then when Riggins moved in the area about 8 years ago, being friends with Ron, we started doing work at his house. So we had such a good brand on the commercial service side. A lot of relationships asked us to do residential plumbing. So working with John, he asked my brother, hey, how can I help you guys out? And here we are today, Rigo tested, Rigo approved.
That is a competitive business, man. How do you maintain the advantage, the edge? I mean, competitively speaking.
With what we do, we definitely want to provide value to our customers. So we want to give an honest price based on an honest product and a good product. So
See, basically, you bust your ass and you do it the right way. Is what you're
you
saying?
work hard, absolutely.
Yeah, very good. Hey, Kevin, thank you very much for joining us
Kevin,
here. And
thanks for
appreciate
being
it.
here.
Yeah,
Great to
thank
see
you,
you.
guys.
by the way,
Appreciate
before I
the
let you go, all the swag here, 44 in the doors. That's all Rigo, right? You're just pumping.
Yes.
You're just pumping Rigo.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Nice, good stuff. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate
Appreciate
it.
it all.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Wanted to touch a little bit on an NBA issue. I know when you guys, and by the way, thanks to Andy Poland for sitting in for me for the last couple of weeks. And I know that you guys talked a little bit about silver and some of the suggestions, for reseeding in the playoffs and things like that. Though one of the things that kind of caught my eye has to do with gambling, and he has proposed. Silver is so far, I would say, at the very least, he's the most progressive commissioner in sports. Whether you agree with his stances politically or not, but he's way out ahead on the gambling issues. And one of the things that he has proposed is that, let me digress 1 second. There's a case before the Supreme Court that will be heard this spring that may very well enable states other than Nevada, because Nevada it's already legal, other than Nevada to offer legalized gambling on sporting events.
I know New Jersey's really
Very much into it.
into it.
Yeah.
The name of the case is Christie versus.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the governor,
that's right.
former
Yeah.
governor of New
Yeah.
Jersey. Yeah.
So if this passes, obviously there's a tremendous financial opportunity for a league like the NBA in a situation like that. And to capitalize on it, Silver has proposed what he has called, and I love the phraseology here, an integrity fee, 1% where that the league would get on gambling revenues, which amounts to enormous money. Excuse me. So at any rate, with that though comes incredible issues. There is a huge cash grab here to be made by the NBA, which is why this is going to happen. Because the ownerships are, what, 32 teams in the league? That vote's 32-0. For
No, it's actually 30 teams, so it's two less. More money for each owner.
more money for each owner, but the revenue is such, and every business in America wants ancillary sources of income. NBA is no different. And this is humongous money. But it comes fraught with all sorts of, it's interesting that integrity is being used because you have all these issues that go along with gambling.
That's why he's using integrity.
Yeah, you keep using it. But how does it apply to the officials? You know, I mean, you're going to give the officials more money?
It's already happened with officials.
And it's already happened. It's going to happen. But, Coach, it's going to happen even more because
Yeah.
now I think gambling obviously becomes even more pervasive than it already is, and more people are doing it. And it's a lot easier as an official. You don't have to determine who wins and who loses. You just have to determine who covers and who doesn't
And
cover.
Chris, and think about the over-unders, right?
Yeah.
You play the over, you get 2 fouls every quarter just to
let me
make
put
sure
a guy on the
everybody-
foul line. Yeah, let
early
me-
on,
yeah.
you know, late in the
Easy.
game, easy.
Easy doing. So Tap, illuminate me here. Okay, so you've got to. I mean, there's so much money, and it's going to happen. I mean, if in fact the Supreme Court rules that it's okay, and I don't know why they wouldn't, but there are problems that come along with this.
I would say to you, I don't think it'll happen to the NCAA. I don't think it'll happen to the court in that lawsuit. I'm not sure that the court will essentially knock down. It's the Bradley law, by the way. So it's two Jersey guys, by the way, Gordon.
Yes.
Chris Christie is on the
Celtic.
name on the lawsuit, and the act itself, I think, goes back to 1992. That's
Bill Bradley.
Senator Bill Bradley was
Yeah.
involved.
Dollar bill.
Jersey guy. And but I do think that legislation is possible that will allow a form of limited spread because, like I said, Chris, we had a discussion about gambling doesn't just occur in that state. The reason that the federal government can get involved is the interstate commerce clause. It says the federal government controls interstate commerce throughout the country. And so if you have a casino in a state, let's just say Pennsylvania, people from Maryland, people from Jersey, people from Delaware, it's the interstate process. And, of course, now you've got by internet, phone, you name it. So I think clearly there's going to have to be new legislation to open this up. But when it does, sports leagues are going to jump on it. It's just too much revenue. $240 billion industry, sportsbook. $240 billion. And we just want 1% integrity fee. Now, I'm all for it if I get a little bit in my check.
Yeah.
You think? But
But the problem is that it will open up, correspondingly, a whole new set of issues. The referees will be one. We tend to think that players being somewhat immune
Hey,
because they're
salary
making so
structure.
much money.
Let's look at coaches. You're an assistant coach.
That's right. You got assistant
Inside
coach,
information. Who's hurt?
trainers.
Trying to hide a sprained ankle. Things like that.
Yeah, I mean, so the whole idea of how you will now deal with sports in a gambling environment will take a whole new form of training and a different mindset because we've never had to worry about it before. Now the most innocent thing will be seen very differently.
Yeah, I think they'll look at Europe, with the soccer. I mean, we forget how big that is over there, and gambling's legal.
Well, it's the
over
number
there.
one wagered upon sport on the planet.
Yeah, I knew that.
Good pull.
But I think it's safe to say that among a couple other items, money and the raising thereof that notion is undefeated. Mm-hmm. And there are only a couple other things in this world that are undefeated. That is that's
Father
certainly one.
Time is one.
Father Time is one. We'll leave the third out.
You
It's
know,
a family
and
show.
like, how does this affect college basketball? Are you going to be able to legally bet on college basketball? Well, now you're opening up a whole nother thing there, too.
Well,
Yes.
you can in Vegas.
Now you're talking about
So-
money and
Yeah.
money and guys who don't get paid.
Oh,
You're right.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, and also, okay, back to your point about the Premier League. That's where most of the money is wagered on in the world. But I've never really been there to appreciate it. But from what I've heard, Las Vegas during the first round of the NCAA tournament is a circus because everybody
Oh, yeah.
wants to go. So now you multiply that. If in fact this becomes legal in in every state, and not every state's going to have a sports book, but if it becomes legal, then you just multiply it times
Whatever.
30, 40,
Yeah.
50, whatever that number is of states that
People are
actually
betting
do it.
now anyway. I mean, it's just
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
inevitable.
but-
That's
But people are betting, right? But it's not institutionalized. I mean,
Right.
you bet. You're known to wager a little bit yourself. I'm not telling tales out of school.
that's you, Gordon.
Yeah,
Okay.
I am pointing at you.
That's
so,
fine. You can point.
but I mean, it's not institutionalized where you don't pay an integrity fee. I've never known you to
Hey,
never known
hey now.
integrity to be a part of any. No, just playing there. But I think that once it becomes institutionalized, and the money train starts happening, I think you got some real issues.
And think about where it's going. I mean, you're going to have people that aren't betting now are going to be betting.
Absolutely.
this is gonna
Well, it's
be-
like a lottery.
Yeah.
It's like playing Powerball.
Every time you go to an NBA game, college game, you're probably going to bet on the game you go to.
Well, the old Garden, you could hear when you played there. You could hear at the end of games when a guy would sub, boo. They get a guy, coach would get booed because if his team had the lead, he put a sub in, and all of a sudden the point spread, was there, and that happened all the time.
So,
Is that the old Boston Garden?
No,
No, Matt.
the Garden.
Okay.
Tap, for you, one of the stories you hear about NBA players is the gambling is legendary. You go back to the stories about Jordan, betting on whose bags would come up the baggage carousel first, and all the card games on planes and things like that.
Golfing.
How could you not expect that in the same kind of culture that these guys wouldn't be betting on other games? They think they know the league better than everybody else does.
The culture has been that is and we do an awful lot. We do a lot within the NBA on the issue of betting on games, betting the industry. That is forbidden. And let's admit, you can find all forms of gambling in the NBA, card games and all the rest of that. There is no need for you to take a risk on your career by betting on
too much money
games.
involved. What those guys are making now, why would you lose it on a bet?
It makes no sense whatsoever to do that. And the league does take great pains. We are all required, not just players, but every member of the NBA is required to do tutorials on the issue of gambling and the nature of our rules forbidding any type of betting on NBA games anywhere, anytime.
Yeah, but athletes
And
are
you have
also
to do a certification.
you guys were also told not to take PEDs or not to do drugs, and it still happens, and not to act like idiots, and it's still.
Yeah, but here's the deal, Chris. You don't lose your career over, weed. You get put on probation, test you. You don't betting. I mean, it is clear and spelled out that you will be thrown out of the league if you caught betting on games.
It's not a three strikes thing, is it? No,
It's not. It's not a shifting scale here.
Yeah.
This one is hard, and they've done a really, really effective job of communicating that point, and it just doesn't make sense for a guy. An NBA player can go to a casino, he can go to a sports book, he can do anything he wants to, outside of bet on an NBA game. He's got plenty of opportunities to gamble if he wants to. Why would you put your risk? Trust me, man. We're on the yacht in the NBA. Trust me. Every day you're on the yacht.
We trust you.
There's no whining on the yacht, and there's no gambling.
There's no gambling at Bushwood.
Yeah, we don't gamble.
No gambling at Burning Tree. As we sort of careen down towards the end here, I want to circle back. I want to go full circle back to where we were with the discussion over the events of the last 4 or 5 days. Coach, you've been at it a long time, and Tappy, same with you. So you wake up and you realize that it's a complete and total cluster. It's a shit show from every angle, from parents' angle, shoe company, agents, coaches. Everybody's kind of in bed and complicit. So where do you start? Where do you start?
To me,
somebody says, Gary, I'm going to give you the magic wand. What do you do?
I'll tell you what, not to be, you guys know me, but I've never seen anything like this in my life, in terms of basketball. I mean, I've been involved with the game since I was 8 years old. I played my first team when I was 8. And to see what's going on and, and I feel disappointed in myself because I knew this stuff was going on for a long time. Yeah. And I never really was vocal enough. I got criticized a lot in terms of recruiting because you didn't get a certain player. But I should have been more forceful in my response to that because I knew, like you said, coaches know when certain coaches are doing things they shouldn't be doing. And that goes, and it's hard to get on a high horse because nobody's perfect. And, to hear Bill Walton say what he said, oh, really, Bill? That's why, how did Kareem go out to UCLA when nobody ever went from the East Coast to California? Seth Davis has a great book on John Wooden where he really gets into Sam Gilbert and the whole deal going down there.
Sam Gilbert being the booster who was propping up the program.
Yeah, and he was for a long time. And, John Wooden gave it the old, I didn't know anything about it, so it's not Pitino's original statement. It's been done a long time. And so, you see all that. So how do you get control? There's probably, smarter people than me can come up with it, but one thing that would help would definitely be a couple things, really. The one and done rules really got to be looked at, and then paying of the athletes. If you took care of those two things and, letting kids go. See, if the NCAA, if they wanted to make a great statement right now, what they would do is, okay, one and done rules gone. Now you can go and try to make an NBA team right out of high school that summer, sign with an agent. You might even get some bonus money. Don't make the team. We'll let you come back to college, but you have to sit out a year, and then you couldn't leave till you were third year.
And you have to get 24 hours.
Yeah, and you have to be a
requisite
legitimate student before you can play basketball. And there's so many kids that if they could just have the patience to do that, they would see they're not good enough. I mean, it's like 1% of all college players ever play in the NBA. Yes. Who are you kidding that you're going to be? If you're 6'2", who are you kidding that you're going to be one of those guys to play? Maybe you are, and that'd be a great thing. But like you can't base everything on that. And it's great to see the Virginias of the world play really well with seniors.
Yeah.
And guys have been there 3 or 4 years.
Purdue,
I mean,
same
kids,
way.
Purdue, kids should look at that. They should look at Miles Bridges coming back to school. He did that to get better. Because Miles Bridges still has some holes in his game.
He sure does.
And it's good that he came back.
Gary, like you just said, if you gave a kid a second chance, he'd love that college experience.
But see, here's the NCAA. All they talk about is a student athlete and trying to do what's best for the student athlete. Well, that's what's best for the student athlete. If we all screwed up when we were 18. Somebody gave us a second chance.
He would love that.
Gordon, I gave you 4 chances when you played for him.
At least.
Yeah.
But
Thank you.
One of the issues with the NCAA, too, is that with the way the FBI has handled this, the NCAA is effectively in a defensive position.
Right.
So they're not in a position to be proactive like you've got. Those are great solutions across the board, or great suggestions across the board. But right now, they're just trying to put out a fire because people are looking at this group, this association of member institutions that's completely ineffective.
Yeah,
and ineffectual.
Well, they formed a committee. The NCAA, we're going to form this committee.
That's what they do.
And that's the first time the NCAA's ever formed a committee on an issue. But see, here's the thing: you get the right people on the committee. Get a former player. Get Sonny Vaccaro on that committee that knows everything about how this works. And no, we can't have those people on the committee.
Tap, what do you got? Solve it.
I'll tell you what I do. I like all the things Gary said. I'm going to go to the other end of the pipeline. I'm going to wave the magic wand, and what I'm going to do is regionalize the AAU. No more traveling outside your region for competition. All right? We're going to downsize the AAU and return the importance of high school basketball and allow people who are professional teachers who coach to now re-enter positions of power in this whole process. I really believe we need to start at the front end of this curve and redo our culture. The AAU culture has gotten out of control. I mean, I remember there was a time you'd tell a kid, hey, we got a trip to the West Coast.
was a big deal.
Guy goes, yeah, I was there 3 times.
Been there. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I played 8 games in
Yeah.
Vegas
Yeah.
in 2 days.
Are we going
I've
first
been to
class?
Hawaii 4 times.
First class.
But my point is, what we need to do is decrease the importance of the AAU and take some of that outlaw nature out of our youth basketball and put it back in a more disciplined environment where we can teach and create a culture of accountability, and that would return some of this to the high school coaches.
Yeah.
Nobody touches the high school coach anymore to recruit because they've been completely demoralized and taken out of this
Minimized.
mix.
Totally minimized.
Yes.
Yep.
See, Ed, I'm with you. My thing would be along the same lines. You have 9 months to recruit. You can recruit the first day of school and the last day of school in high school. You can recruit them. You can't recruit in the summertime. All recruiting has to go through the high school. You cannot.
Agreed.
You cannot do anything, and you're home for 3. And it would help college coaches too. A lot of the stuff that happens to college coaches where they get in trouble happens in the summertime. They're on the road. They get a chance to meet all these guys all the time. During the season, you don't have a lot of time to do a lot of different things. And I think if you just took everything back into the high school situation, into that time period, it would really help.
Plus, remember, we've got organizations that monitor teachers and coaches.
Sure.
They monitor the school systems. There is a sense and a structure of accountability there. There is no structure of accountability in the AAUs. We need to return to a structure of accountability and start this rebuild of our culture of the game back in scholastic sports.
I love it when we can solve all these problems together.
We've
The
got
4 of
that
us.
one. Okay, what's the next thing?
World peace. What do you got, Gordon?
No, I mean, I disagree with what everybody's saying. I think the FBI is going to really help us out here.
Okay.
I mean, they're going to clean everything up. I mean, to get to the point where.
Okay, well, they're
where
going to clean it up
it's
on an
gonna be-
individual basis, but what do you do? What do you do with the programs? What do you do? Because they're not going to address that. So do you rely on the NCAA to say, yeah, Sean Miller got fired. He also got charged with all these things. Aiton's out of school, so now
They're going to have to figure out a way how the power conference gets to be able to pay
See,
players.
the power conferences got to run themselves. In other words, the NCAA.
How has that not happened?
The NCAA can do all the Olympic sports, but football and men's basketball, the power conference have to run that themselves because they'll police that.
Yes.
They'll monitor it. And obviously the NCAA can't do it. They've proven it time after time after time that they can't monitor anything. And so
I agree. They got to break away, though.
we're talking, say, 75 teams should be able to handle things themselves, have their own rules, pay the players if they want to. You know, just do it that way. And you know, for so long, the NCAA kept telling you that a field hockey player should be treated the same as a guy who's going to be a first-round pick in the lottery.
Yeah.
You know, who's kidding who? You know, I mean, let's get serious. This is 2018.
we're about to wrap this baby up. You guys got any last salvos? Anything in particular pissing you guys off? Tap, aside from the fact that you're in Milwaukee, is there anything that angers you especially?
You know what? Yes, I'm going to have to take a swing at 2 guys I happen to like a lot. But look, Jay Billis and Dick Vitale, before we start coming to the defense of every coach and everyone's a great guy, let's just let this thing play out, fellas. All right? Let's not get ahead of ourselves and tell us that everybody here is straight up, on the up and up. They're straight arrow. They haven't been. And here's the deal. If you get caught, you pay some
Pay
consequences.
the price.
So,
Yeah. Mine is, when you hear somebody said, like with Miller, like, well, if he would have known that it was being wired, then he wouldn't have done that. Oh, come on, that's not a reason. If you want to get a $100,000 deal set up, you're going to do it whether.
It's wired.
I mean, the fact that it's wired has nothing to do with it. You just wanted to do it.
Well, the amazing part of that whole story, and again, if you believe what you read, he was the guy who volunteered to be the point man in the whole process, which
Correct.
which
Keep my
completely
assistants out of it.
removes any plausible deniability.
Exactly.
What do you got, Gordon? You got
I
anything?
got 2 quick ones. NBA players. John Wall. Is he too cool for school with those shades on the sidelines? John Lennon. Tab, what is up with that? I mean, he
Can't
looks
go
good,
there.
but I want to
Can't
see
go
his
there.
eyes.
Can't go there.
Okay.
Didn't have one guy on the
I
team that
got
would say, "Hey, that's wrong. You can't do that."
I mean, he just and then shut up and dribble. I'm not being political, but Isaiah Thomas needs to shut up and dribble. I mean, he's talking about the Cavs in a panic
Gordon,
move.
you're just mad at him because he's not playing for the Celtics
I'm happy
anymore.
he's not playing anymore. But
I missed this. What is he?
Okay,
what's he,
so
what's he
his
bitching
latest
about?
one is that the Cavs made a panic move trading him. All right, when he got there, he said, "What did he say?" He
Didn't
said,
give him a
I've
chance.
got to start."
Yeah, yeah.
He's
To
not
LA.
starting. Yeah,
Yeah.
He kind of talked his way out of Cleveland.
You're
He's
a bitter
got,
man.
He's got 20 games to prove himself, right?
Yeah.
He wants to back up the Brink truck? No way.
No chance.
No chance.
Wasn't it last year? Gordon said he's like the greatest
MVP.
thing,
I think he said MVP
in the
last
league.
year.
Yeah.
This,
Love that guy.
yeah, when he was wearing the green, right?
Wearing the green.
That'll do it for this episode of the Basketball Coaches DC podcast, presented as always by Finch Computing, and tonight brought to you by O'Connor Plumbing from Frederick and Germantown. Our executive producer, as always, Tim Shovers. On-site audio engineer for the Basketball Coaches DC podcast is Claude Jennings. Don't see Claude in the house tonight, missing in action, but perhaps at the bar. Who knows? Thanks to the Chatter staff here in Friendship Heights for serving our crew and our friends and partners who all showed up. And by the way, great
burgers.
crew.
Great
fantastic.
burgers right here at Chatter.
With a fried egg and pepper jack
Not bad,
cheese.
huh? Try that sometime,
Pretty
buddy.
sweet,
Yeah.
man. Pretty sweet, yeah. More than welcome to come down here any night we do this. Generally speaking, we're Monday nights at 7 p.m. You can watch us record the podcasts. And for more information and specific scheduling, check chatterdc.com. That's chatterdc.com. The Basketball Coaches DC podcast reaches the world, but is generally about DC basketball for DC hoop fans, supported by local area businesses like O'Connor Plumbing, and is produced by Hometown Podcasts, local audio and video podcast publishers. Until the next Basketball Coaches podcast, thanks for listening. Quick shout out to all the guys at Synthesis Multimedia Production for joining our coaches tonight. And so long, everybody.